Everybody, thanks for watching. Real quick, we had our first meeting last night for Merkabah Scholar Society, and a lot of people couldn't make it, but there was a pre-recorded video that I did that you guys will get today or tomorrow. I have to edit the video, plus I'll mix in the video from last night. But basically, everything we talked about last night is going to be in that video. So the next meeting, you guys are going to have questions. So I talked about books that we're going to have, our logos, our clothes, what have you, what the Merkabah Scholar Society entails. All that's going to be in the pre-recorded video that you guys will get today or tomorrow. So if you missed the meeting, don't worry about it. You guys get the video so you'll understand that information. So the next meeting, any questions you have, you guys can shoot to me. And we'll do a live only for Merkabah Scholar Society on YouTube, as a matter of fact, because I can make it so only people with the link can participate. So it's a lot of people who got in late. I left it up for a little bit longer for people to join. So it's completely changed now. You guys still have a slight opportunity to get in. The links are in the description. Again, the prices has changed. And as I said, after this time, you guys will have to be voted in after this. So this is the round 2 for people to try to get in. We'll have our next meeting pretty soon. That link will go out to you guys. I had to come to LA. I'm in LA right now to take care of some business and some personal business, which is why I was here last night, which is why the meeting was so late. But I know a lot of you guys are overseas. A lot of you guys hit me up and said you won't be able to make it. But I did a pre-recorded video that I'm going to send to you guys. Everybody will get it in their email. Don't worry if you didn't get NDAs yet. NDAs are still going out. So everybody will have their NDA signed by the next meeting because there's a lot of new people. Everybody who was in that first group, you guys all got NDAs already. So you should have them already. Check your email. Send me an email if you didn't get it. But the next wave of people, those NDAs are already going out. So check your email. So everybody will have one by next meeting. It was a good meeting. A lot of people showed up. We put a lot of information. We talked about a lot of different things. Ace Cloud talked about some things, and we're going to get into a lot more. So thanks to everybody who came out last night and participated. Thanks to everybody for watching the video put out yesterday. Saturn Satan Final, I put out the preview, so make sure you guys check that out. And check out this video as well for the preview. So link is in the description. If you guys want to get in while it's still not so high, get in now. As I said, again, you guys are going to have to be voted in. Merkabah Scholar Society people, make sure you guys hit the registration link in the description and register. The new site is going up for Merkabah Scholar Society, so those doors will be open. As I said, I'm trying to get everybody in quickly as possible and get out everybody's NDAs as quickly as possible. But yeah, let's get into this video. Thanks for watching. So you go back and you have to understand, like, the colonies or what have you. Most people understand that we had 13 colonies in America, right? 13 colonies, they understand the southern states or what have you. And most people don't understand that. We know America is huge, a bunch of different states. But most people don't realize that just like Europe, America was the same way. Because, of course, you had a bunch of countries who occupied here in America. Remember, we get the Louisiana Purchase from France, right? A lot of people don't understand that America bought Alaska from Russia. So Russia once controlled and owned Alaska. America bought it for, I think it was like $7.2 million. 600,000, I think it was like miles or what have you, square miles of Alaska. That's a huge, 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 huge piece of land. So understand that when you look at the map, and it's another thing, flat earthers talk about this. You pay attention to the map, and there is a land bridge supposedly that will connect you from Alaska to Russia. So when you look at the map this way, as you can see here, it looks like that could be possible. But it's something that they don't want to talk about because then you have to think about the map being flat. So just throw that in there real quick. But remember, you had all these other countries that occupied America. Spain, France, Great Britain, the Netherlands, Sweden, Russia, and even Portugal occupied lands here in America. So something to think about. So now that really brings into perspective what we have been talking about as far as the conquest, because you got to think about it. We're talking about the 15th century. Columbus supposedly came over 1492 or what have you. So that's recent as fuck when you really pay attention. 1400s. So what happened? What was the history before that in this country? And that's when we get into everything having to do with the Blackamoors and the true indigenous people of the Americas. But you have to really bring it to perspective and think about it. We go back to the 4th century BCE when we have this European conquest start, with the fall of Kemet and then so on and so forth. We got the 10th century, things was happening. The 11th century, we get the Crusades or what have you. We get Renaissance and everything like that. And then remember, we just start getting into the biblical part of our global history. All this stuff, everything happened from a stretch of the 4th century BCE up until today, which is relatively quick compared to how old, civilizations is. So you think about that, and it's as if an agenda was put in place that set about these people to do what they did. Because once we had a fall of Kemet, as I said, there is just a spark, nonstop conquest, and they're just conquering. And we just took it from the 4th century BCE up into the 14th century or 15th century when we get Columbus or what have you, and them coming into the Americas and everything that followed that up until today. So think about that. That's quick. That's a lot. That's an agenda that's relentless. Same agenda, right? It's going to make a lot of sense. So think about that. So remember, you had this whole conquest happen, and you got to understand, it's just like with Europe. So what happened with Europe, you had World War II, you had all the fighting going on over there during World War II. But it was the same here in the Americas, because those countries I just named that occupied lands in America, there was even either a purchase, like Louisiana purchase, Vermont was purchased, Alaska was purchased, but we had so much war that happened and everything like that. Texas, the whole thing with Mexico and the wars and everything. But it was a bunch of wars that was happening in this country that they don't really talk about on how this country was established. They was going out conquering, killing. So as I said before, how fitting 4th of July, where you had, remember, only the 13 colonies, because people always say, well, wait a minute, slavery, and we was enslaved during this. And as I said before, we only had control of the colonists, only had control of the 13 colonies. There still was the South to worry about, and the rest of America, all those other states to worry about, that they did not have control over to completely abolish slavery throughout the country. So through all those wars and treaties and buying states or what have you, then eventually we had, the Articles of Confederation, and then we had, just so many different documents that basically brought America into United status. So what is that? Think about that. The United States stamp. It wasn't separate states. So we had the United States stamp, what basically would be a New World Order. Kind of, sort of. But, America is called the New World. So think about that. New World Order. So you had with the Masons that came over, what we call the colonists or what have you, them establishing America, and they had a plan. And we know what that plan was, manifest destiny. So that was the original plan. Remember, manifest destiny, those people believed they had a divine right to go west and conquer all those lands. And that's what they was doing. So manifest destiny was a separate agenda that they had that turned later on once 1913 happened, and we had the Federal Reserve come into play. And then that's finally when the banker powers, the money powers, got their hands on this country with the passing of the Federal Reserve Act. And through that act, that's how they got control of the country. And manifest destiny was done, and we had a new world order. So after the Louisiana Purchase, the Texas Annex, the Oregon Trail and all that stuff, remember the wars with the so-called Indians and everything they don't really talk about in history class to establish America. And then, leading up to the War 1812, and then of course the Civil War, and then everything changed once, as I said, 1913 hit, and we get the passing of the Federal Reserve Act. And with that, the passing of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, that was it. That was basically the New World Order in America basically being done and falling under their control, So again, you go back, you have this New World Order, basically Europe. We have the pillaging and rapes and the Crusades and all of the wars, the so-called holy wars that was taking place for them to establish their rule. So we don't get the first monarch until probably 10th, 11th century. And we had emperors and stuff like that before in Europe, but the first European monarchs right around then. So again, these royal families are relatively new. There was the trickle-down effect. You start seeing royal families just popping up, and these people calling themselves royal or godly or what have you once conquest happened. And what they did was, of course, history is told by the conquerors and not the conquered. They cut all this stuff out of history, so a lot of people don't know it. When you start really tracing history, if you look at it, how it's being taught to us, it's just poof. All of a sudden, we land on this page and we have these European kings and queens and rulership or what have you. And they'll really get into how these people got this land. It belonged to people who they took the land from. So when you really dig deeper, this is what, it gets into. So again, New World Order, basically, with Europe during World War II, after World War II, I should say. Remember, we had the establishment of Israel as a state. Everything changed after World War II. So complete difference. So think about this. You had this happen, and we have this new control of these territories. What's the main goal? What is their main goal? The main goal is to continue to deceive the people. That's what it's all about. It's a shell game. We already established, as I talked about before, Hitler was involved with the whole thing. Hitler did not blow his brains out. He lived on or what have you. It was a lot with that. But this was all to establish basically the European New World Order, all that war and death and destruction, and the people begged and pleaded to have this happen with this, union or what have you. We had a lot of stuff come out of that. So fast forward, and we're coming into today in this modern time, but it's still a lot to look into as far as how we get to this point. So just like here in America, the EU established a central bank, a bank to basically govern their currency and credit or what have you. So the purpose of the Federal Reserve is to basically, help us economically with the money, because you got to look at it like this. This is how they try to pass it off to the people. We can't really trust the elected officials with our money. It should be an outside entity that controls our money away from the elected officials, so we don't have to worry about any, theft or embezzlement or what have you. It should be somebody separate from these people who control these major, these countries and these major decisions that affect Americans or what have you. So let's bring in somebody else from the outside that can handle our money system, so the people don't have to worry about the politicians being, having their hands in the cookie jar. And that's how they basically want to break it down to you, which is bullshit, because the same thing you can say about the politicians having their hand in the cookie jar, you can say about the Federal Reserve. The fact that it's not really under government, but supposedly answers to the government, not answers to the government, reports to the government to get an okay for stuff that they have the power to basically make happen, and this government can't do nothing about it. Now it says real quick, the Federal Reserve, often referred to as the Fed, is the central bank of the United States and is an independent entity within the government. It is not owned by any foreign countries or foreign entities. Here are some key points to clarify its structure and ownership. There's a way around that as far as foreigners owning it. So, structure. The Federal Reserve System consists of the Board of Governors in Washington, D.C., and 12 regional Federal Reserve banks located in major cities across the United States. And here real quick are those 12 regional Federal Reserve banks and the cities that they reside in. So pay attention. Number 2, ownership. The regional Federal Reserve banks are structured as private corporations, but their stock is owned by member banks within their respective districts. And these are the banks here. Take a look real quick. You recognize these banks, which makes sense. These member banks are U.S. chartered banks that hold stock in their regional Federal Reserve Bank as a condition of membership. The stock does not confer the same rights as stock in the private corporation and cannot be sold or traded. Member banks receive a fixed dividend and do not control the operations of the Federal Reserve. Independence is the one. The Federal Reserve operates independently within the government. Think about that. Independently within the government. They think y'all stupid. Meaning its decisions on monetary policy are not subject to approval by the president, Congress, or any other entity. However, it is accountable to Congress and must report on its activities and the state of the economy. Now, former chair of the Federal Reserve Bank came out and said this on PBS, I believe it was, or C-SPAN, one of those shows, and basically said the same thing as far as the Federal Reserve basically having the power to do whatever they want. Now, if you didn't see that clip, I put it in a couple of videos before for Alan Greenspan. Here it is real quick. Take a look.
What is the proper relationship? What should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. So long as that is in place and there is no evidence that the administration or the Congress or anybody else is requesting that we do things other than what we think is the appropriate thing, then what the relationships are don't frankly matter. And I've had very good relationships with presidents.
So I want you to think about that. If that is basically saying it's all about money, forget hopes and dreams and country and patriotism and everything like that. It's all about the money. That's what that means. So it's the most important thing in the country that we need to separate from the members of Congress and even the president himself is the money, because they understand how money will control everything, and it does. So if they are the ones who's making the decision, why are we electing a president? And the reason why that question is important, because it's about the money. It's about the money. Because you got to think about it. We have votes, right? We have elections, and elections are run, and people are voted in based on the policies that they speak to the people to, garner their vote, to get their vote. So what are those policies usually dealing with? The main thing is the economy, economics, right? Because if you're rich, you're not worried about healthcare. You can afford a doctor, right? Because that would be the only other thing you have to worry about is healthcare, right? Education. If you're rich, you got good money, you can afford to send your kid to the best school. So it comes down to the economic, financial part of what the politician is talking about and not anything else. Nobody really cares. So what are we looking to the president and Congress for if it's not to basically control and run our economy and basically make sure our economics, our money, our funds is being used to benefit the people when we know it's not? Homelessness is rampant. People out here starving. They denying people food stamps and federal assistance. All this stuff. Credit is ridiculous. The Fed is obviously not doing what they're supposed to do with the power they have to control the economy, because that's what they're basically doing when they're controlling the money. They control inflation. They control the input and output of credit. So when you think about mortgage rates and everything like this, it's all decided by the Fed. So with these people making a decision, which is basically saying, well, the president's hands is tied, Congress's hands is tied, the Senate, we can't do anything. We have to wait on the Fed. Well, okay, who the fuck runs the Fed? Who is these people? And they say, oh, they broke it down when they said these member banks, right? And we go to these member banks, as I posted up here, and you can see with Wells Fargo and all these other guys that's in here. And it's who's the chair? Who's running these banks? And who are these people that's making the decisions? Where are their meetings being held? What are they talking about? Why can't we vote on the policies and decisions that they're making up to control us and control things? This is important. It's a stock market video, but this is everything. This is the stock market, basically, because their decisions and choices that they make affects the market, plain and simple, and it's going to make a lot of sense. So you got to think about that. Who are these people that's making these decisions? And how is it that the president is not the one? So now, that brings us into this point, because what's happening, presidential election, right? So what a lot of people don't realize is 2016, when Trump was first elected, became president, what happened that year? Brexit. Brexit is the UK's exit, Britain's exit from the EU, right? British exit, you might as well call it. They call it Brexit, right? Because it's a big deal, because it's going to affect trade, it's going to affect citizenship or what have you in the EU and with the UK. So there's a lot of issues with that, which Trump did support Brexit when he became, president in 2016. So it was a big deal, but it was being overshadowed by what was happening in Africa, which, of course, to note real quick, Africa is, of course, controlled. A lot of people ask me this question of who controls Africa and what countries in Africa are free or the people own. I think it's only one. I think it's just one that's basically free and independent. But, of course, in order for that to survive, it has to have some type of involvement. But you take a look here and you see all the countries, those countries I was naming that was in America, colonizing, the same countries that basically own countries in Africa. So it's something to pay attention to because they divided it up. Remember, Leopold talked about this. I want a slice of that delicious African pie. And they divided it up in the 1800s, Africa, and they've been controlling it ever since the milk in the country. So yeah, it's on that list. But Brexit is important because Britain exiting the UK, the United Kingdom exiting the EU, I should say, is a big deal because this has a lot of issues with trade, foreign relations, what have you, and caused a lot of issues once it happened. Because in 2016, once they announced it, it didn't really go into effect until 2020 because they was waiting so long to vote on it. Nobody talked about it. They're not really talking about it now. But it's starting to come back into effect because people are going to want to know, is there going to be another vote to either vote them back in or to keep them out? Are they going to even put it on the ballot? Are they going to even talk about it? And believe it or not, tomorrow, July 4th, is the election over there in the EU. So this is something to pay attention to because decisions there could have a major effect on the stock market if something happens with Brexit. But they're really quiet right now. They might announce something later on. But we expect the big announcements to be made leading up to the presidential election. Now, after the debate between Trump and Biden, the market kind of, was uncertain. Not too much up, not too much down. It's just, when Trump first came into his presidency in 2016, it was good for the market. And people expect it to be the same, that if he becomes president, the market is going to do well. If Biden does, it's not. It depends on policies that they're talking about. But again, they're pushing that whole thing, policy, as if it's something you should worry about if one of them get elected. When I just told you, the Federal Reserve is the ones who really makes those policy decisions when it comes to economics, as far as us being impacted by the dollar or inflation or credit or what have you. We got to worry about the Fed decisions and all this stuff. And I said all this, you can understand this. Everything I just talked about, all this stuff is a diversion away from who is actually controlling shit. So think about it. If your goal from the rip is to basically cause an event, moments that's going to cause the world to basically come into a new world order that you control, these are some of the things you have to do. But it's such a large thing to think about that people can't even fathom, that all this stuff was done over hundreds of years just to lead to this one point. Because you would think, well, the people who started this, they're dead. How did this thing continue if the people, this started fucking, hundreds of thousands of years ago? It's over 2,000 years and this stuff is still going on. So people are not thinking like that. And everybody thinks it's about money. It's about money, or he just doing this for money, they doing this for money, No. The money is to control you. That's what the money is for. They don't need the money. They make the money. They can get whatever they want. It's not for that. It's to control the people who you need, because they're going to die off. These people at the top, who knows how long they're living. It's to control those people who they need to make shit happen. The money has to flow. And these people got to be living the way they're living to make these policies and things happen for the powers that be to get their agenda passed. Okay? So you have all this stuff going on, and you got to look at what has happened and what has taken place. We basically united as a world already. It already happened. The internet. We are interconnected in so many motherfucking ways. One thing that's affect the market here affects the market around the world. And these markets are basically what is a cancer. It's what they've been using right under our nose to control the whole fucking thing. It's the market. And a lot of people are not paying attention to it. It's how you control shit. You can control policy. You can control borders with this stock market. Stock market is super important. And countries, even if you got your own currency or what have you have to pay attention to what happens in America because America is the world reserve currency and commodities are bought and sold in dollars. So this is big. So even though you have, China reporting well as far as stocks, they still have to pay attention to the dollar and what's going on, and so does everybody else. So you get everybody under this umbrella of the stock market, and you make it so that major policy decisions that affect the economy, affect people, are put into this thing. So when you have an issue with trade, there's the issue, it's going to be an issue with importing, exporting, and people getting their shit. The trickle down effect to us is we're going to be short on stuff. It's going to be a shortage on something. If the world is at war, trade routes, cargo routes, it's going to be cut off, blocked off for whatever reason. So, I'm waiting on a shipment from this country to buy and sell goods or what have you. I can't get it because of war. And this is what's going to happen. Remember, you play any type of war game or you read about any type of wars, what do? They have a blockade. They go out and they basically stop the income, the flow of food and supplies into certain countries to basically either starve them into submission or to just make it general hell for those people. Remember World War II, they bombed munitions plants, they bombed, factories or what have you, food producing factories and everything like that to make it hard for the war to continue or for the people to basically, finish the war. So this is stuff that happens when war happens. So a major world war or war between two superpowers, especially if China's involved in anything, that's a problem. The fact that America, as I said before, will put all its eggs in one basket. And that's us allowing China, a country that we supposedly don't control all of our imports. America is the biggest economy on the planet. Nobody imports more from China than us. We are reliant on China. We know we can pick up almost everything in your house. Every other thing you pick up in your house is probably made in China. So we understand this. And everything's just a song and dance for us to accept what's going to happen, what they're going to do to us. It's just a song and dance. All the bullshit rhetoric, he couldn't do this because these people were blocking him. Obama couldn't pass these laws because, the Republicans was blocking him. Trump is being bullied by the media. And, it's just, everything is just a song and dance that it's going to be excuses for what's to come. So understand, you watch the stock market, you pay attention. They're always talking about the Dow Jones and the S&P. The Dow Jones basically reports on 30 corporations that basically trade and deal with commodities or what have you. So what other countries are watching. If the dollar's doing well, then these other countries who buy dollar understands that the products or what have you, we should say the commodities in America is okay if the dollar's okay, because they're monitoring the major companies that deal with this. Same thing with the S&P 500. So we look at that and we say, that's fine, right? Dow is fine, S&P is fine. What is going crazy right now, and you guys should understand if you're paying attention, AI. And I talked about this, just got into this. It's Skynet, it's the internet, it's Saturn, it's all that. So before I told you guys about digital health. Digital health would be basically AI. So you have AI, and then we have generative AI. So with generative AI, that's what like Chat GPT and Google is coming out with like supposedly a better program. It's supposed to be better than that. I believe it's called Google Gemini. So if you're not using Chat GPT, you're sleeping. This program is like Google, 10.0. And Google Gemini is going to be better than this. But with Chat GPT, this thing basically talks to you like it's a human. You can ask it questions and it will type out the answer right in front of your face. It's amazing. It can handle complex questions. It can also fix code. So even if you just ask it for a code, like a div or something, or you're trying to move something over on your website that you're building, or you get an error code in your coding when you're coding a website, you can take that code and put it into Chat GPT, and it will give you the reason that the code isn't working. It will give you the new code that's going to fix the problem and then break it down and explain it to you. It's amazing. So this is the future, with AI. And this is what everybody's investing in right now. So real quick, here goes some stocks you guys need to invest in as far as these new AI stocks, because if you ain't got it already, this is definitely what you need to jump onto, because it's the future and it's going to make crazy money. We're talking about an industry now that's over 20 trillion a year, right? We know what happened with NVIDIA. NVIDIA jumped into the #1 spot right now and it's trading over $3 trillion. I think it's like 3.3 or 3.2 trillion, right? So you got NVIDIA, you got Microsoft, of course, you got Apple, Alphabet, which is basically owns Google, parent company of Google. You have Meta, of course, Amazon. These are in the $1 trillion clubs, the trading in the trillions clubs. These companies. So we know all the investment that Microsoft put into generative AI and all this AI stuff, and they backed Open AI, which Open AI you've probably been seeing for a long time. They are coming out with some crazy stuff. So much money has been going into the sector of AI, which I talked about before with digital health, which a lot of these companies is dealing with digital health. The AeroVironment company is dealing with AI planes and cars. It's going to basically, they're building planes and cars and autonomous vehicles or what have you, even small things. Remember what we've seen before with the drones and everything that's going to like delivering pizza and delivering mail. This is all the stuff that they're working on to change the future, because you got to think about it. One, we've seen the robot bartenders. We've seen how AI and robots are coming in and taking jobs. It's not going to be no cashiers pretty soon. All this stuff is going to be going. They're eliminating anything that really seriously needs humans to work, that we can have AI and robots operate more effectively. So these companies are coming to the forefront. They bring in unbelievable technology to the game, and people are investing in it like never before. They're calling it, the new .com bubble. AI is supposed to be the new .com, and we know what that is. When the .com happened, it made multimillionaires and billionaires. That's what's happening with this AI, this generative AI, and everybody who's invested in it right now. So these companies that I put up there, you guys really want to invest in these companies, because some of the stocks right now is trading so small, even at $20. This stuff is going to blow up, because you have these developers and these people in this space that is building so much. The Procep biorobotics company that's down there building these medical robots, can do surgeries, all kinds of complex things that I talked about with digital health, that is basically going to boost everything and change everything. So we're going to have this drastic change as far as technology and robotics coming together to give us basically Skynet, as I said, Terminator, The Matrix. Remember, Morpheus said the world marveled as we gave birth to AI. Remember, giving you the hints. Terminator, AI. What happened? Terminator 3. They uploaded everything to Skynet. Skynet basically took over and was going to have the keys to the world. And it flipped the switch and everything changed. Remember, it became self-aware, and then it was basically how we get the bombing and, Terminator, all that stuff. So it's giving you that, that understanding of what's happening and what's going to happen. So I'm telling you the point we're going to get to, because right now, and it's going to get crazier, which is why get in now and make as much money as you can, because it's going to be a while, but this stuff is going to build up quickly. This is stock market final video, by the way, but I'm going to put out another video that's going to be on YouTube. If I can, if I don't have to say anything crazy that I need to keep off YouTube, I'm going to put a final video. This is the final video, but I'm going to put a video basically getting into some stock stuff when we get to this point after the election. It's going to be a big change that's going to happen. I don't want to do a whole nother stock market DVD for it. I want to put that information out, quickly as I can. That's one of the reasons I was testing live stream to see how effective it would be in getting people on there, because I worry that if I have to really jump on there and tell people something real quick, I'm not going to get the ears and the eyes and ears of enough people, and that's how they want it. So make sure you hit that bell on YouTube and you stay in touch and follow me on Instagram, and just make sure you keep in touch regarding further stock market information, because I'm going to put them out mostly on my Instagram. So make sure you follow @TheRealMerkabah on IG. But, real quick, So you have all these companies. Everybody, if you're not paying attention, everybody's going nuts over AI. AI is absolutely crazy what it can do. It's the future, plain and simple. The stuff that the limitations we had before that we couldn't fathom passing this quick, we surpassed them, 10, 20, 100 fold right now with AI. And you're seeing it on every platform you use it right now. You're seeing that use AI button there on everything, on Photoshop and everything like that. I'm seeing it with all my Adobe products. And it's the future. It's everything. And we're putting everything into it. And it's exactly what they want. It's a Trojan horse, plain and simple. So, what all this stuff is going to lead up to, what this stuff is getting towards is as we get into these stocks, and we start to allow them to control more of our lives, it's going to be problems. I mean, you have Humane coming out with this AI pen, and this thing is outrageous. I mean, is it going to replace cell phones? People thinking, because one, you just clip it onto your shirt or what have you, and you can basically project, which is like Iron Man technology almost right onto the palm of your hand. That's interactive. You can control, like this little light you see on the hands, you can actually touch it and control stuff, by touching it. It's the future. It's going to do everything you need it to do without having to have a phone in your hand. I don't think it'll replace the smartphone. We just love our phones too much. But it's going to be something that a lot of people are going to want to have. Well, and I could think of a lot of different uses for outside of phone technology, that technology can be used for. And we're probably going to see that with this new AI, generative AI. But you got to look at stuff like this and how we're giving AI so much control over our life. And we're going to see this a lot more with the cash registers and the waitresses and people who run bowling alleys and all kinds of stuff like that. Everything's going to be automated. We put so much trust into these things. And what's going to end up happening, and of course, I talked about this, you're going to have a cyber attack. And that's the only way that we can get what they want out of it. Because a cyber attack to where you have somebody take control of this stuff that we put all this trust into and begin to run it, that's a big problem. That's a big problem. And the thing is, this is what's going to happen after the fact. Because before that happens, it's going to be something that happens on a regular to get us to universally accept AI. Because I think a lot of people are going to be against it. I think it's going to be a problem. And they're going to have to push it and sell it. All the more reason to sell it if there's this terrorist cyber attack or what have you. Terrorist cyber attack that, like I talked about with Caesar's Palace and the money and everything like that. And then I talked about with Cuba when they woke up and those people had their money missing. Stuff like this keep happening. And we have Russia, cyber attack. And if they look at this and, the granddaddy of all cyber attacks, and then out of this, they say, you know what, we need to allow AI to take control so this can never happen again, because AI is so sophisticated and better to where we need to implement it in what we're doing to protect the people. And then we'll have this AI. And once we get into that and they start putting everything into that, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Something like that can control so much. Who are the people that's controlling it? Now, if already this government basically said we're going to give an outside private company control over the money supply, control over, the economy, basically, control over the dollar, interest rates or what have you, the stock market, everything, credit, then what do you think is going to happen with AI? This is going to be basically another new world order or another Federal Reserve. Because think about it, of course, if the Federal Reserve is coming in and was put there to control the currency, AI is basically going to be that. So it's going to be all this kind of regulatory shit that's going to have to govern and control something that's so powerful. They're going to act a fool with that. That's going to be crazy. Who is behind the computers is going to be the question. Who is the fingers doing this? Who is controlling that? Well, AI is running all this. Who's running AI? But this is something that we got to look for. We got to pay attention to. But in the meantime, you got to make as much money as you can off of it and benefit from it, as I said before. Because all those stocks that I told you guys to jump onto in the beginning, guess what? They are almost all of them is adapting AI. And that was the first part of the plan for those stocks.